Hi there, welcome to Now You're Cooking. My name's Mike Fear, and I'm going to do the traditional Paddy's Day New England dinner. Now, growing up in England, I had no clue about this, so this is pretty new to me. And so I decided to do it in a new way, and we're going to do it with the Instant Pot, which I have right here. But before I start, I just want to say that number one, don't forget, we're doing the Bee Bath, Buy Bath. It's the last 3 weeks we're on. If you haven't won yet, you've still got a chance. Make purchase in 4 different stores and you can win $75 or $25. We draw every week. Also, just to remind you that next week we have, by popular demand, the return of Avery Meyer. She's coming in with Charlie to do a class on snacks. And so, without further ado, you're going to get your corned beef at your local grocery store or butcher. And here's a good example of one. It's a beautiful specimen. I have rinsed this one thoroughly just to get all the salt off. You don't want a really salty piece. The other thing you'll notice is it's got this fat cap right on here. And one of the things you don't want is to have a ton of fat on there. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to actually take off some of the fat. You don't want to take it all off, but you want to take some off. So with my fabulous, this is a great little knife. It's nice and light. It's all stainless steel from Wusthof. Not from Wusthof, from Henkel's, sorry. It's a knife that we actually have on a special deal. So if you want a super knife for regularly $150 down to $99.99, and we have a bunch of them. So you see here, important thing is to keep your fingers out of the way. I try to just put a little pressure on the fat here as I'm taking it off, and you see this one's got quite a lot of fat, and I'm taking a bit too much fat off there, but there we go, a bit more here. And so it's always a little tricky when you're cutting towards your hand. So the more you can keep your hand out of the line of fire, the better. But you can see some pretty massive chunks of fat coming off of here. And it's so slippery. Yep. Not so much, it's not so thick right here, so I may have done much as I need to. Now, because it takes some time to do this, so I would actually set this, once I've got the fat off, I would actually set it right in my Instapot pot, and then comes with a packet of spices. And I would sprinkle the spices on there, and then I would put a 1.25 cups of a white wine, a Riesling probably, Gewürztraminer. I would choose either a wine that you don't need too much to drink, or an inexpensive wine. So that would do the trick. Now this one has been going for an hour now, and so what I'm going to do, and it's actually been naturally resting, so here I go. I'm just basically releasing the final pressure, and you'll see here in a second when the pressure is released, you'll see my other piece of beef which I've been cooking. And it's just in there with the spices and my white wine, and you'll pop the top off. The safety of these devices is there's no way you can open it until the pressure's released. It won't actually let go. I'm jiggling it, but it won't let go. There's a little thing that stops me from doing that. And there we go. So it's released. And if you'd like to take a quick look in there, you'll see the spices, you'll see the wine. And so the next thing I am going to do is I'm going to give up my board. I'm going to grab another knife, and I'm going to set my fat aside, and grab another. So now I'm grabbing yet another Henkel's knife. This one's Japanese made, and we're gonna take some carrots and we're gonna just cut them up into nice bite-sized pieces. Take the end off of there. And then I'm just going to drop these down into the liquid. So I'm dropping those down into the liquid there. And then do the same with some potatoes here. And then we'll just take those potatoes. Yukon Gold these are. I think you could use others, but these are beautiful in here. And then lastly, I have myself a Savoy cabbage, and I'm actually not going to core the cabbage. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it in half. And it's a beautiful cabbage. This is, if you've not done cabbage, Savoy's the way to go. So now I'm going to cut it into 4 wedges. And then I'm just going to pop those right on the top there. And I'm going to button it back up. And again, now I go to pressure cook again. So I'm going to bring it back to pressure cook on high. And then I'm just going to set the time. And I'm going to go 10 minutes. That should be plenty for the cabbage and the carrots. The beef's already cooked, or essentially is cooked. Then I'm going to hit start. I'm going to set the top piece here. Right now it's on steam. I'm going to set it to pressure. So now it's on pressure. So now that's going to go ahead and get started, and we're going to move on to other things. One of the things that we talked about is what is this without Irish soda bread? And the Irish soda bread recipe I've got here today is purists will yell and scream and say, no, it's only 4 ingredients in Irish soda bread. Well, I'm sorry, we're gonna defy that one. We're gonna do it the way we want to, and so it tastes really good. So first of all, I'm going to get some buttermilk, and we're going to let's see, we are going to not use this buttermilk. Sorry about that, I grabbed the wrong one. And that's the buttermilk we're going to use. Sorry about that. Study the cookies while I'm... And we're going to have... Let's measure. Okay. I need a measure. I'm gonna, wing it because there's a measure right on the side here. So I'm going to put in 1 3/4 cups. I've got 2 cups in there, so I'm going to leave a 1/2 cup. And for those of you who've watched me before, you know it never can go smoothly for me. It's like I set myself up for this. So we've got our buttermilk. I'm going to add an egg to the buttermilk. And again, this is very non-traditional. And then I'm going to mix the egg and buttermilk. Yeah. So you'll see the pressure cooker is actually coming up to pressure. Is when it does these little lights here. It's just basically saying I'm not up to pressure yet. As soon as I am, I'm going to start the timing. And so okay, got that nicely mixed. I'm going to set that aside. And set that aside. Okay. Next thing I need is 4 1/4 cups of flour. Now, the way I do it, I don't measure it in cups. It is in cups in some respects, but a cup weighs 5 ounces. So what I've got is 21 1/4 ounces. No, 25 1/4 ounces. So 4 cups is 20 ounces, which is, okay, I've got 21 1/4 ounces. I was right the first time. It's 1 pound and 5 1/4 ounces. So I actually weigh it because if you've ever done it with cups, 1 cup is going to be different from the next cup. So this is a safe way to do it. Need salt in there. So I've got my teaspoon of salt. That is traditional in Irish soda bread, by the way. This is baking soda, not baking powder, baking soda. Also traditional for Irish soda bread, hence soda bread. Sugar, 3 tablespoons of sugar. Not at all. It makes it taste too good if you put sugar in. So I'm going to mix those up quickly. And then another feature, which makes it super yummy, is 5 tablespoons of butter. And I've got them cut up because we want them to get nicely cut up. It's a bit like if you're making scones, you would do the same thing with the butter. And then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use one of these. I'm sure you all have one, because I want to cut that butter into little pieces. And you'll see that it's there we go. And just basically, once I've got that nicely. The other thing that I've done before we started is I turned on my oven to 400 degrees because we're going to want to bake the Irish soda bread. I'm just going to feel the little pea-sized pieces of butter in there. It feels good. Maybe a little bit more chopping. And you can do this with your food processor. I often do with scones. I often use the blade of the food processor to do this. You can do it with knives. My mother used to actually rub it in with her fingers. She just basically used her fingers to rub the butter in. Once I have that, I'm going to add another thing that is not traditional, and that is raisins. And again, it makes it taste too yummy if you put raisins in. And who wants your Irish soda bread to taste yummy? So we're breaking all the rules. I used to actually put caraway seed in as well. So that's another, if you like the taste of caraway, that's another awesome thing to put in there. Okay. Next thing we're going to do is add our egg and buttermilk. And right there. And then I'm going to reach into the drawer and hope I have something to stir it with. There we go. And our friend over here is still coming up to pressure. We pack so much into these shows. So I'm getting this nicely mixed together. And once I have that, one of our finest even making Heather laugh here. Okay, I think it's mixed enough. I think it's mixed enough. The kid told me it was mixed enough. Isn't it fun? Don't you love working with me? Okay, so I've got that all, and come up with my pastry. Yep. And I'm going to pop this out. And if you don't have a pastry mat, you should get one. I absolutely love them. I use it for my pastry, I use it for my scones, I use it for everything. And so what I can do is just basically knead it together as best I can. And okay. So you can cook this on a baking sheet if you want to, but I tell you the best way is in a large cast iron pan. It's just awesome. It's the best way to do Irish soda bread. I sometimes do my scones in it too. So I'm going to plonk that right in there. Nicely press it down. Now, the next part apparently is really key, and especially if I can find, and that is to cut right down the middle. Nice cross right there. Okay, and I was told yesterday that you should cut a couple of holes or a hole in each quadrant, and I think the person told me it was to let the angels out.
Did you coat the pan with anything?
I did not coat the pan with anything. That's a good question. You certainly, if you feel like you need to. This is a seasoned pan, and so I don't feel the need to. If you're doing it in something that you think, well, it may not be seasoned, I might not have difficulty getting it out, I would recommend parchment paper. As soon as I've done that, I'm just going to now throw it right in the oven. 400 degrees, and I'm going to leave it in there for 45 minutes. So that is that, and then I'm going to turn on the bottom oven to broil. And I'm sure that you are can follow the recipe, but just so I can demonstrate what the next step is, you'll have to just imagine, oh, it's now 10 minutes has gone by and it's time to take the piece of beef out. So what I'm going to do is grab a plate, and I am going to shut this off. The carrots and the potato and the cabbage aren't done yet, but that's okay. I'll do that later. I just want you to see what's next with the actual piece of corned beef. So I'm going to release the pressure. Now again, I would be normally doing this in about 15 minutes time, because I would let it cook the whole 10 minutes and then I would release. I've let it naturally release, and now I'm releasing the and I am going to reach over for some tongs. And as soon as this lets go, as I say, it's got that safety mechanism. I'm going to take the cabbage. Looks like it might be done. Put that there. Put that there. And pull out my veggies. And actually what I'm going to do is grab my piece of corned beef, and I'm going to set it right on this pan right here. And what I've got here is a nice mixture of honey and, do you have any Grey Poupon, monsieur? So honey and Dijon mustard, and I'm going to slather that on the top. And then I'm going to pop this right in the oven under the broiler, right there. And I'm going to do about probably 3 minutes under the broiler. And while I'm doing that, I could point out to you that next week we have Avery. And she is going to be way more professional than me. You've seen her before, and she does an awesome job. Bee bath, remember that. Also, if you need a touch of the Irish, we have this wonderful Irish shamrock, and it's a white stout, little unusual. And to be perfectly honest, any of our beers are awesome for St. Paddy's. And if you're not a beer person, we have some fabulous wines that can go with your New England boiled dinner. And remember, make plenty, because you can always make corned beef hash, which is what some people I hear prefer over the actual boiled dinner. So, okay, see how we're doing. Keep cooking it, broiling it until you start to see it singe a little bit. It's nice to have that sort of like crispy bit on the top. And I don't know if we'll get there. We might set the whole rig up one. This is where I tip it out and it falls on the floor. Let's put it up a little higher. See if that What else can I tell you that we're having happen here? We just had 4 pallets of OXO. So if you need your OXO gadgets, kettles or whatever, they just came in this afternoon. We've also we've got some lovely new Hungarian and Slovenian wines. Heather is really proud of those. We have some orange wines if you're not familiar with those.
What is an orange wine?
What is an orange wine? Oh, good question. An orange wine is a white wine that has been left on the skins, has had that skin exposure for a bit longer. It draws a lot more flavor and color from the actual skins. So I'm sure the first orange wine may have been made by mistake, but there's some fabulous ones. We brought in one called Hoof and Lure. It's actually a Greek orange wine, and it's just amazing. We brought in, I think, 8 cases last fall, and it all went very quickly, and we've fortunately been able to bring it back in again. Really tasty wine. It is different. So if you say, oh, I want to try something different, an orange wine is the way to go. Ask Heather, or you can talk to me, of course, but ask Heather what she can tell you about the orange wines, and try one out. And I think you can see it starting to singe on the top. If you want it a little bit more, go ahead and put it back in. If not, I think you're all good. And let's pop it back in for a little bit. And
Show that you cooked already.
oh my gosh, we've got this plan down to a T. So I made this yesterday, and here's what it looks like after you've baked it. And I don't want to get ahead of myself, but we cut into it yesterday, and Amy, who many of you know works here, she had to come and say it's the best Irish soda bread she's ever had. I think it's because she's had a lot of the traditional. We used to have an Irish soda bread contest, and some of those were not as tasty as they might be. This is really tasty, especially with the sugar and the raisins in there. And if you like caraways, add that. And I think without further ado, I'm going to say good night, and we'll see you next week.